Hey everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. Welcome to the first episode of 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. I apologize I didn't get anything out last week. I am just getting over, as seems to be the standard for this time of year, I am just getting over a cold. I was feeling okay last week, but I was doing a lot of coughing, a lot of sniffling, and I didn't want that to come across on the video. So here we are today, the second Monday of the year. And what we are going to take a look at is something from last year that I should have taken a look at. This is Power Ring. This is the final figure from the McFarlane Crime Syndicate wave with the Starro Build-A-Figure. This came at the end of September, beginning of October, and to be honest, I just completely forgot about it with Bricktober and then everything we were doing in November. I meant to do it in November, but I kind of slipped my mind, and then Christmas happened, and so I know it's like 2 months old at this point, but I still wanted to take a look at it. I still wanted to open it. I wanted to finish the series basically because we looked at all of the other ones, and I want to get Starro together and take a look at that beast. So what we have is what we've seen already, the standard McFarlane packaging for the DC Multiverse. Basic black, big picture window showing the figure, some accessories, the collect to build figure, the image of Starro down here in the corner. Up top, more window to let the light through when it shows up on a peg. On the side, Power Ring Crime Syndicate. Over here, more window, just Power Ring. On the back, we have a great image of Starro, that this would have been his card if the collect to build figures came with cards. And then we have the cross cell down here with Ultraman, Superwoman, Owlman, and finally Power Ring right here. So, without further ado, after 2 months, September, October, November, December, after 3 months, let's get him out of the box and take a look at McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Power Ring. Okay, here Power Ring is out of the box, and of course Power Ring is the Crime Syndicate's answer to Green Lantern, in case you can't tell by the name and the uniform. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 7¼ inches to the top of his bald dome. Now bringing him closer to get a better look at him, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that this whole body, this is basically Parallax. If you have the Parallax figure, and I do, I recently got him. I haven't opened him yet. I'll probably do a video or maybe at least a short, just something, because I know a lot of people missed out on Parallax. But once we open Parallax and you take a look at it, this whole body, torso, legs, and all, is basically reuse from Parallax. The only difference that we have here is his shoulder piece, the lack of cape, and the head sculpt, which the head sculpt isn't bad on this. I like the coloring. I like how the green really stands out against his skin tone. I like how the green has sort of like this emerald marble look to it without going to like the swirly twirly look that Hasbro gets with a lot of their Marvel Legends figures. So I really like that, like how this just sort of shines right here. The green on black really stands out. That is a great color combination, a great color choice right there. That's the comic, not Todd, but Todd really made it work right here. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more green in the legs, because it's like once you hit this, the legs are just black. And I would have liked to have seen like maybe some more green piping down here around the shins, maybe on the shoes, on the boots a little bit. I think this is where the comic stops, but I think this is one time where like I wouldn't have mind if Todd would have just added his own little flair down here in the legs. But right here, this whole thing looks fantastic. The color of the uniform, the shininess of the shoulder pads here, even the shininess of his mask, if you bring it up, it has this sort of marbled look to it as well. The skin tones, like everything just really pops. Everything really stands out. I love the look on his face, like this stressed look that like he's in combat or he's thinking, because of course here is his ring. Let's see if we can focus that in a little bit. There's his ring right there. You can even see that like there's a little lantern emblem sculpted into it. I think this is the best ring we've had sculpted on a figure so far, especially since The gloves being black, the ring really stands out on its own. A lot of times the gloves and the ring are the same color, so we don't get to see that stand out. The legs have all of this weird texturing here, has these pads here on his thighs that truthfully, it makes more sense and looks better on Parallax, but it doesn't look bad on Power Ring here, and it will make him stand out and be a little bit different from the other Green Lantern figures that we have, and we'll see that when we do the comparisons. I like the shiny black. I like the green piping. Everything looks great right in here, and we have the texturing here on the forearms. Great use of smooth and then textured, something that has like really become a staple for Todd in this DC Multiverse line. Now looking at the articulation, he will do a full 360 spin with his head. He can really look up, which is good for a flying figure. I would have liked to have seen him be able to look up a little bit more, but you can kind of articulate his waist for that. So there's that. He can look down. He can look down. He has some great tilt side to side. Now his arms will do a full 360 spin, but this, while it's soft, it's not so soft that it's going to get out of the way. So you would have to come out to the side right there. Really, really good butterfly joint here in the shoulder. Really loose, really, but not too loose, like it'll hold position. Really good butterfly joints here in the shoulder on this guy. We have our bicep swivel. We have our bicep swivel. We have double jointed elbows with some really great travel. The wrists will pivot and they'll hinge in and out. And then you can do this, you can do this, and then they'll hinge up and down. Let's get your arms out of the way here, John. You can see he has this ab cut right here that he can crunch forward a little bit. He can crunch back a little bit. He can rotate right there, and he can do a full 360 right there as well. And it gives him some side to side, but he also has a ball joint down here at the waist. So the two combined, he can really crank back, fly. He can really crank forward. He gets some really good side to side by using the two of them in conjunction. And of course, the ball joint will do a full 360 spin as well. The legs will come up to 90, and you can see that that rubber piece is there as always. That like it actually shifted to the side when I kicked his leg up. He's just looking ridiculous right now. But it will also come out to there, not quite 90 to the side, but that's decent. He has that weird hidden thigh rotation that doesn't do a whole lot. It's not working real well for this guy. Maybe? No. Oh. Double jointed knees once again with some really great travel. No boot cut, no thigh cut, just that right there. Ankles will rock side to side, and they'll rock back, and they'll rock forward. And we have toe articulation. So something that I want to draw attention to, that while I think the line work on here is very well done, there's no overspray, there doesn't seem to be anything sloppy right here. The one thing that is noticeable and annoying are the piping lines that are coming down here on the sides of his torso, on his abs. You can see these ones over here are a little bit more forward than these ones over here. These ones are almost at the apex of this band on his hip, and these ones are just ahead of it. And if you try and do it, his torso doesn't go forward, isn't looking straight forward. But if you do this then, to try and compensate for that, not only does it look weird, but the lines don't match up. Because at least the lines on the torso, whenever you have them match up, they both match up. The problem is that the line work is off, as you can see. And that's annoying. That is frustrating because you can look at it and it's just constant reminder. There's nothing you can really do to hide that unless you pose him in sort of like an action pose. But if you just have him on the shelf, I don't know. That stuff like that bothers me. It annoys me, and there's nothing I can do about that. As with all McFarlane DC Multiverse figures, we of course have the stand with the DC logo tampoed on the front. And here we have Power Rings Crime Syndicate trading card that we have a really good shot of the figure up front. Not in any action pose, not really doing anything, just a gray-black background, charcoal background, but it really works, really makes that shoulder piece shine right there. Whoops. And then on the back, we of course have his bio. Go ahead, pause and read if you want to. And then also, as with all Crime Syndicate figures, we have this Starro attachment right here that we've seen these before. These just latch right onto the torso of a figure. With Power Ring, it's a little bit more difficult because of the shoulder pieces, but it does latch onto him. And that's it. That's what we get for accessories. We'll take a look at the Starro Build-A-Figure piece real soon, but this is all we get. And that's a little upsetting because we have a Green Lantern figure here, but there are no constructs that come with him, even if it was just a charged up fist or something. That I really would have liked to have seen him come with some sort of constructs of his own, because we got them with Stormbreaker. Dawnbreaker. We got them with Dawnbreaker. Even Dawnbreaker came with like that weird bat swirly construct thing. Hal, John Stewart, both versions of him. Kyle Reiner, both versions of him. No constructs with Power Ring. And I think he could have gone ahead and thrown some in there, considering this whole body is reused. There's no new sculpt here, like I said, except for these shoulder pieces and the head sculpt. So I would have really liked to have seen something else thrown in with him. And of course, we have our Starro piece right here, that this is a pretty big piece. And he has a little bit of teeth going on right there. You can see all of these suckers right here. I love that they're not all just uniform going up. I do like that, like, each one of these looks like it was sculpted individually, even when you get to the top and you get to these smaller ones, that they're not all just the same, that they do all have a bit of a difference to themselves. I can't wait to see what Starro looks like put together. And here are all of our Starro pieces ready to be put together. Had a little bit of a freak out because I almost couldn't find this piece, which was the first piece we got, and is kind of the most important piece. So let's put all this together. Let's see what Starro looks like. Okay, friends, here he is, Starro put together, and Starro has some mass to him. I'm actually kind of surprised at how big he is. I wasn't expecting him to be quite as large as what he actually is. He won't stand up on his own, so let's just lay him down. Okay, and we take the tape measure, and we can see from tip to tip, he is approximately 12.5 inches tall. And then if we spin him, and you consider that the tips are turned down, he's still roughly 12.5 inches from side to side. So, standing him back up from here to here, he's a little over a foot, and from here to here, he's a little over a foot. Now I'm going to hold him up here, and we're going to bring in Power Ring, and you can see how he sizes up compared to the standard McFarlane figure. Let me hold him, and let's bring in my favorite of the collect-to-build figures so far. Let's bring in Atrocitus, and if you know how big Atrocitus is, you can appreciate how big Starro actually is right now. And I know the size is more or less just these star arms, that like there's not a whole lot of center mass going on, especially when compared to Atrocitus here. But I still think it's pretty impressive, the sheer size, the size that Starro is, because Atrocitus is only a little bit shorter than Necron, and I don't have a fourth arm to grab Necron right now, but Necron still wouldn't be taller than Starro right here. Now let's bring him forward a little bit so we can take a better look at him. That first, I love the eyes right here. I love, you see how they're even reflecting my studio lights right there. I really like that, and I like the texturing. McFarlane excels at texturing. He puts them on all of his figures, and the company really hit it out of the park with Starro's texturing right here. Starro, of course, star of comic and movie. He's been the main protagonist in, most recently, the Suicide Squad. He was in, which one was it? New Frontier? No, I can't remember. But he was just used in, what was it? Suicide Squad. There was the Valley of the Starros and Death Metal. Of course, he was an integral part of the forming of the Justice League. And there was something else that just used Starro. and I can't remember what it was, and that's kind of annoying. But we flip it around to the side, and we have this big gaping maw right here, and this is great too. See if you can get light down in there. You can see that there's like a second ring of teeth down in there, past the first ring. Kind of looking like a Sarlacc pit, Starro, gotta admit. Kind of looking Sarlacc right there. I think he was just used in DC Online too, the game. I can't remember. But once again, we see that all of these suckers right here, they are all individually sculpted. No two look exactly the same. I really like that. I think the coloring is great. There's not much coloring going on here, but I think the yellowed eyes stand out really well on the purple body. I think the wash that they put on the purple body, just to break up the coloring, to add some depth to it, some dimension, just some color to it, breaks up the purple. And then, of course, on the back, we have the stark white for the fangs right here for this open maw. And once again, there's a bit of a wash on here just to break up the purple. If I have one complaint about this, I wish we would have gotten some kind of stand, even if it was just something that came up here and clipped and just held him in place, because he won't stand on his own, and he doesn't really look that impressive laying down on his back. I really wish we would have gotten some kind of stand that just came up here, clipped into the middle, and would hold him up. I'm sure we'll be able to figure something out. We could probably fabricate something, get him to stand up. But especially since he comes with the Crime Syndicate, you kind of want him to be the centerpiece of the Crime Syndicate, like the Crime Syndicate is fighting him. That would have been really cool if we could have had something like that. There's no articulation on Starro, because why would there be? There's a little bit of bendiness to the tentacles, but there's no Oh, wait. The tentacles will hold position? Are you kidding me? I didn't know that. Well, some of them, they will. There's a little bit of a bendiness to them. It looks like there's a bendy wire in the tips, at least, so that they can sort of hold some position. I don't think it's going to be enough to get him to stand. No, he's still too top heavy, but that's cool. I didn't realize that. I thought these ones... Oh, so you can get him to go full out like that. Now I really wish he had a stand so that we could sort of like pose him up in like some of these, I don't want to say action shots, but maybe make him a little bit more intimidating. That's really cool. I didn't realize that until just now, that the tips do have, down here at the main, it's just rubber, but it feels like there's a little bit of bend in there from here forward on all of them. So that's pretty cool. I like him. I just wish I could stand him up. Okay, so something I want to show you that I just figured out while I was trying to set Starro up for the end of the video is that if you have a McFarlane flight stand here and you close the clamp and you sort of set it up right here, the clamp fits inside his mouth right there. So he can lean back into it. See right there? And then if you turn him around and you look at him face on, that he does stay up on his own like this. The only thing I don't like about this now is that, like, the McFarlane flight stands are few and far between. And so now you just took a flight stand, a precious flight stand, away from somebody who had a flight stand to hold up your Build-A-Figure. Another reason why John, by Power Ring, should have come with a flight stand in the first place. And you saw how Starro sizes up. Now for size comparison for Power Ring, here he is next to McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Hal Jordan Green Lantern, and John Stewart Green Lantern. And you can see, especially at the shoulders, that Power Ring is a little bit taller than both of them. Hal and John both share a body, so it's not a surprise that these two are almost exactly the same size. And like I said, Power Ring uses Parallax's body, and I think that's why he's a little taller. Like, even if you see at the shoulder line, even underneath those shoulder pads right there, he's just a smidge taller than the other two. And also from the McFarlane DC Multiverse line, we have Dawnbreaker over here from Dark Knight's Metal, and oh, how I hate this guy. And over here we have what is probably my favorite Black Lantern from the Blackest Day line of figures that he came out with, Deathstorm. And you can see that once again, he is just a smidge taller than Dawnbreaker, but he's pretty much shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye with Deathstorm over there. Here he is with Mattel WWE The Hurricane and Valaverse Action Force Infantry Commando. Here he is beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone because, hey, he flies through space. He'll run into these guys eventually. Here he is beside Jazzware's Spartan Collection Master Chief and Noble 6. And finally, because I couldn't fit him in the lineup at the beginning of the size comparison, here he is beside McFarlane Toys Blackest Night Kyle Rayner, the original version. I couldn't get the redeco version of him because he never made it to my target. I'm a little upset about that. And as always, me from the Valaverse Action Force Steel Brigade. So here we are at the end of the Crime Syndicate Starro Collect Build wave, and I have to admit, I am a little underwhelmed by the whole thing. I think that including all of the Starro pieces that could latch on to other figures, I think that was a kind of a cool touch, but I feel like you only really needed one or two of those. You didn't have to put one in with every figure. Of course, if they hadn't put one in with every figure, I'd probably be saying, why didn't they put one in with every figure? But there are so many instances where I would have preferred that they had just come with some sort of other accessory. And I know that sounds weird because McFarlane figures don't have a lot of accessories to begin with, but even at least the Green Lantern figures come with their constructs. Power Ring didn't come with anything. At least Wonder Woman comes with some sort of melee weapon or her lasso. Superwoman didn't come with anything. I liked that Ultraman came with 2 sets of hands, open hands and closed fists. I thought that was a nice touch. And Owlman just knocked it out of the park. I loved Owlman. He was probably my favorite figure of this whole line. But even he didn't come with anything, instead just having that Starro chest piece that attached to them. Starro himself is kind of cool, I'm not going to lie. I kind of like the look of him. He's very simple to build. I know that's going to be definitely one of those things that your mileage may vary. Starro may not be everybody's favorite collect-to-build figure. Mine definitely still is Atrocitus, but Starro is so ingrained into like DC lore that I think it's really cool that we got him in one way or another. Like, if you would have told me a couple years ago that McFarlane was going to make a Starro figure for the line, I would have told you were crazy, that he was not going to waste his time with something like that, something as niche as that. But here he is. He was the villain of the Crime Syndicate miniseries that these figures are based off of. He was just used in the Suicide Squad, like I said before. He's been used in DC Online, the video game, and he was in Dark Knight's Metal. Like, Starro is one of those guys that just keeps popping up, and I love that we have... I hesitate to call him a figure, but I love that we have representation of him. I still wish he would have come with his own stand. The fact that I have to cannibalize a flight stand from another figure, and I tried some of the other ones, like it basically has to be McFarlane because the McFarlane stand has that solid arm on it. All of the other flight stands I have like multi-jointed arms that they kind of just collapse back under the weight. The McFarlane stands, because it has a solid arm, will hold Starro up. And that brings us to Power Ring. Power Ring should have come with a flight stand. I don't get why he's so stingy with the flight stands sometimes. I think Ultraman came with one. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look. But I think Ultraman came with a flight stand. Superwoman didn't. Owlman didn't. That's fine. But Power Ring definitely should have had one. My love frustration of the DC Multiverse line from McFarlane Toys continues. For the longest time, I held off on buying DC figures because I thought Todd wasn't going to keep the license, but lo and behold, he did. So I've just accepted it and sort of dove into it. And while the looks of most of the figures I like the looks of them, I like the paint apps of them, it is frustrating, the articulation. The articulation continues to feel like it's fighting you whenever you try to get them into some action poses. And that's pretty much every DC Multiverse figure I have across the board, with very few exceptions. Power Ring here was no different. Like, I think he looks great, and he has all the same articulation as a regular DC Multiverse figure. He has all the same articulation as Parallax, because him and Parallax have the same body. But it's just something like the articulation is stiff, there's no real fluid movement, having no pivot ability in the legs. Like, I don't get why we can't even get a boot cut on some of these figures. That hip joint just doesn't work. He really needs to put a thigh cut in there. That hidden hip joint does not work on all of the figures. Sometimes it works really well. There are some figures I have that hip joint really works, but more often than not, you can barely use it. And that just adds to the frustration of when you're trying to play with the figure, when you're trying to pose the figure. So that is our look at Power Ring and Starro. Once again, I know this is like way late, but I had legit forgot that I had not done anything with him. I found him in the pile, and I was like, man, I really got to get this on camera because I wanted to take a look at Power Ring, and I absolutely wanted to put Starro together to take a look at him on camera as well. Also, my Flashpoint Aquaman from Target came in, and that is the first figure in 2023's slow burn collect to build figure, which is the Flashpoint Cyborg, and that looks really cool. So we're going to be taking a look at that real soon too. So I wanted to get this done before we look at that. So until we look at that, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.